Welcome to the Everyday Awesome Project, where we bring you inspirational stories and game-changing strategies to live your most awesome life. Hey, superstars, welcome back. Polly here.
And Sam Pruitt. What's up, beautiful humans?
Yes. Talking about something that has shown up in at least my life and your conversations and things that are going on with you. We're calling this episode, You Are Not Your Diagnosis, right? And you and I were just chatting before we went on air about different diagnoses we've had in our life, right? And how we handled them. And, you've got a recent one, and I've got one that's 30 years old, and how I would have handled it differently and stuff. And really, what we want to challenge today is like, you know, the mindset of like you get a diagnosis, what starts to happen and how you go into this, and just help people see perhaps a new paradigm shift is that's what I'm out to cause, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And I'm up to, pointing out, just question everything.
Well,
Agree with nothing. Okay,
right, and
most
you're
people who know my personality know that I'm already not a big fan of like rules and I like to live by structure and discipline. That's very different than society or others, the
yeah.
othering coming into my world and trying to tell me who am I going to be? What is my life going to be? What is my body going to look like? Da 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 da. Like I just have a natural resistance against that and sort of always have been. So
Hmm.
my thing is just to bring to the conversation today. Yeah, I've had several diagnoses, including one recently, and it's all right. It's
Hmm. Hmm.
it's just part of the fact I live in a physical body
Hmm.
and my energetic cellular physical being, this shell that I'm walking around in, it's human. It's made of human cells. So, and it's in an environment that is complicated. Our environments where we live and all of that kind of stuff. So shit's going to happen to
Hmm.
all of us.
Hmm.
And so today I think we just want to talk about what happens when you get a diagnosis. How can you mentally, emotionally process that and really become empowered around that path rather than taking it on as a label or an identity and
Hmm.
having it hold you back or restrict you from living your best life, right?
Yeah. And, there's a couple of different things I want to maybe insert here as we go into this content. One is, the idea that there's different phases people are at. We talked about this before we went on air. So, if you are pre-diagnosis, let's say, or you've got some blood work that's signaling some stuff, but you don't necessarily have you're a stage 4, right? So there's we recognize that. So take this as like there's different severity to the conversation and the immediacy that with which you need to take action. So that
Mm-hmm.
aside, what we're looking for is, we want you to be from passive patient to just like, oh, tell me, whatever this person in the lab coat, white coat says is gospel, to informed, right? And I love your word as we were talking about this idea is like getting curious. Like you said, question everything, get curious. And something I spoke to, so 35 years ago, I think it was, picture 1990-ish. I had a diagnosis of hyperthyroidism. There was no internet, or maybe there was, but I don't think there was. There was like no internet. It was like, this is your physician, this is the relationship and access to medical information that
The one person,
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
the
unless I
one
wanted to go to
person in the world that would be the expert.
unless I wanted to go to the library and like research, and who knows how outdated those books were, whatever, right? So I had this diagnosis. He comes to me with, you got three options, choose one, la la la, off I went, right? Didn't, what today would I have done it differently? Oh, hell yeah. Like I know somebody who cured her hyperthyroidism with lifestyle changes. And if I had even known that, and that's where I want people to just like think outside of maybe what you have known or have grown up with or have heard in the media, or just debunk myths or old paradigms to go, what, maybe my body is a natural healing mechanism. Maybe I've just had some influence. I've created resistance, I've created toxicity, I've created inflammation, and maybe I can also undo that, right? And so I think the core thing also that I want to point to just at a high level is, oftentimes I see, and maybe I'll speak from my standpoint, not just everyone, is I see physicians that I talk to are not root cause based in the Western medical system. They tend to just be like surface, like, they're catastrophic or, like symptoms management, not root cause. And I think your study of Eastern medicine and Ayurvedic medicine is like, there's something at the root of why the body's doing whatever it's doing, whether it's a rash or a disease or an inflammation or name it. And if you don't get to that and understand it, you can't influence it. You can, it's like taking an aspirin for a pain. Well, what's causing the pain, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
throw all that out there into the conversation as we get started. So thank you for.
Yeah, the more severe the disease state is, depending on the diagnosis and the disease itself and the complexities and so forth, this is a very nuanced conversation. I mean, yeah, I've got three people that I care deeply about who are currently in cancer treatment, and they're in a very extreme state of that and,
Yeah.
fighting for their lives, basically. So that becomes a very different conversation. But before you get to something along those lines, most of us we'll just go in for a regular medical or just experience something within our own body, not even in a doctor's office, throughout the body, just how we feel or whatever. And so those are warning lights on the dashboard of the car that we're trying to drive 100 miles per hour down the freeway on. You know what I mean? So it's just those are warning lights. And if we can look at those as what they are, warning lights of, hey, it's time to take some action, something within the system of this body is not functioning at its best level, disease may never set in, hopefully,
Mm,
right?
totally.
And
Totally.
even there's in Western medicine, sure, these doctors are experts in their field. They went and became educated and spent a lot of time and energy becoming an expert in whatever the thing is, right? But they can't know everything.
Mm,
It's impossible. And we shouldn't expect them to be an expert in everything.
hmm.
General medicine is generalized medicine, right? They know a little bit of all the things, or
Hmm.
a specialist is a specialist in that thing. So we should respect them for who they are and the knowledge that they do have, and then understand that it's always changing.
Yeah.
Science is always evolving. It's mind blowingly cool if you're a nerd like me to be like following any of this and see what's happening. And then when you reference like Eastern medicine or a more traditional, Native American and all these different types of cultural knowledge based medicines,
Hmm.
all the way back to the beginning of mankind, there's ancient, brilliant wisdom within that,
Totally.
wheelhouse, if you will. So you can, depending on your own beliefs and who you are as a human, you can exercise any and all of these things. There's a time and a place for it, right? And it's your choice.
Yeah,
It's your choice
for
to
sure.
decide how you want to take care of this body, this physical body, and that you're entitled to own and operate and ultimately be responsible for,
Yeah, and I love
right?
what you said. Like, it's a choice. Like, what I'm saying in my paradigm shift is like, don't just be passive and hand it over to, okay, just tell me what to do, right? Or it's outside of my control. I wholeheartedly want to debunk that because, like, one of the things as you were saying something is like, we talked about before we decided on this topic, like, should we go into mental health, and like how people can, take their mental health and that can get, and but we said let's stick to physical. And as we think about diagnosis and disease, things that show up on blood work, and I, like you, I think, if I have something out of whack in my body, I don't just let it sit there. Like, for example, this morning I was at body pump and like my shoulder was like, my right shoulder was just like, not as strong. And I was like, oh, note to self. Okay, what's going on there? And sometimes it can be like you tweak your neck doing 100 pull-ups, you crazy woman, right? So it's like, okay, that's just overuse. But
Yeah.
if you notice something, like my big thing, especially from a body functional system, muscle, skeletal type of thing, is, like if I have like I have a friend who like can't lift his arm over his shoulder, and it's like, well, how long has that been like that? Like I'd be like, get like hello, like when you can't lift it up, you address it sooner is what I'm saying. Like we
Yeah.
empower ourselves to root cause, not just like, oh, the body just doesn't, I can't just lift over my head over my arm over my head or whatever. So looking at like, oh, I'm in charge in this body. I thought, yeah, sure, the body's going to have a natural breakdown it's going to do and whatever. but where am I empowered to choose differently, adjust something, get some help, and like, hey, why can't I do this? And then like I go to my physical therapist, and he goes, well, that's because of this, and we need to like stretch this out, and like some fine tuning. Get to that root cause. Don't just accept like I can't. I'll never lift my arm over my head again. So
Oh gosh, if that were happening to me for an hour. So like for example,
yeah,
I couldn't turn my head for a day, because I had done way too many pull-ups way too early on in my, coming back to fitness thing. But I was having a damn good time, okay? And so
totally.
there's that. But the lunacy of it all. But
Yeah,
if I went for a week and couldn't function on this
yeah,
shoulder or name any body part, there would be hell to pay because I would need to get that resolved. So I would immediately start doing the research and trying to figure out, a resolution. So that's the empowering part. But let's talk first a little bit about the fact that chronic diseases do happen.
mm,
Okay. Again, we're human.
right,
We're not robots. We are
right,
human,
right.
right? And then additionally, we are exposed to all these things over the course of our lifetime. But many, many times, well, so the top four chronic diseases: cardiovascular disease. These are the things that kill people, what
Yes,
they get into disease states and die from. Cancer,
yeah,
right? Neurodegenerative diseases,
yeah,
metabolic diseases. So those are the top four diseases. And in those diseases of category is so many diseases,
right,
so many
right,
disease states, so
right,
it's like if you have cardiovascular disease, there could be 30 or 40 different things that could possibly be going wrong. It's not like one disease, right? um, but again, warning lights come on the dashboard of your human
shortness of
vehicle.
breath.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah,
When you feel any of these things might be within your body systems going wrong. But how many people even know what these systems are? The
yeah,
cardiovascular system, the metabolic system, the nervous system, the
right,
neurological system of the body.
right.
So, at the root of this conversation, I can't stress enough how people should actually know how their body works, the basic systems of the body. You don't have to be a nerd like me, but you need to understand like muscles and bones and the different systems of the body and how they function in a healthy state,
Right.
how they develop and function in a healthy state. And I feel like as a society, we do a shitty job educating children and parents
Hmm.
and then adults as to how their bodies
Hmm.
function. So let's
Hmm.
just point out the obvious is these
Hmm.
books do exist. There's a thing called science, and you can find out about these things. And now that there's the internet and YouTube, you could basically watch a couple movies and have most of this stuff down.
Totally.
Okay? You don't
Totally.
have to go back to school and study
Yeah. We're
holistic
not
health
saying
like me
go
or
like
whatever.
Samantha down all these rabbit holes. You don't have to be
No,
411
watch a
every
couple
day.
freaking videos and figure that shit out. So anyway, that will give you at least a little bit of confidence and why this is important.
Right.
Confidence and agency over your own body and conversation when you go into have these blood tests or have these other tests done or have conversations with doctors and nurses or have a decision point around a treatment, a drug, or a surgery. You will feel at least like you can have the conversation. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back.
Yeah, and I love it. I can. So I just want to throw in YouTube, and you said internet and just AI. Like it's so sophisticated what it can, help you. Like I know don't self-diagnose and all that stuff, but like you can get very informed, if you have
Mhm.
something, asking it questions, right? And I love you. How many times I've heard you say, you pretty much walked into the doctor with like a list of questions. Like this is not an interrogation, but it might feel that way a little bit because like we need to, because you're often on the level with them. Like you've done your research going in. It's not just, okay, doc, you tell me what's going on with me. Like you go in saying, I'm seeing this in my body, and what do you think about this? So you guys interact and dialogue about it, not just
Mhm.
trust what comes over.
Sometimes they're not stoked about that, by the way, and I have
Yes.
fired many, many. We have had breakups. But I would say, at least at this point, and it could be how I deliver it now or being older or whatever, the doctors I've picked, is different. It's different. But They do engage in the conversation intelligently. They like it. It's really kind of fun for them to sit down and be able to talk to somebody who understands how their body works or has curiosities and real scientific based questions about specific things.
Well, I think
You
more
know?
people are doing what you're doing also. They've got to get used to it.
Yeah.
They've just got to get used to it. People are not, well, we're here to, we're assuming that people are not, so we're saying, come in doing that. But more and more people are also. Like, there are more people that are like, I'm not just going to accept this. I'm going to, heck yeah. And it's so at our fingertips. So,
Mhm.
absolutely. So,
So
well,
there's
let's
lots of
talk.
diseases and disease states. Diagnosis versus destiny or DNA.
Mm, mm.
What
So
do you
this
think
is
about
where
that?
this whole thing, because you and I, like, we shoot back and forth in coming up with topics for our podcast, and it was like, okay, we need to have a topic, and the it was because someone in my life recently was like, we're working on it. Well, yeah, I'm on this medication and that medication, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know you were on those medications. What's going on? And he's like, well, I just, I've got that in my genetics. And it was like a high tension, hypertension, heart thing, and I think diabetes. And I was like, just that's it? Like, oh, just and accepted it. And I was like, and this isn't a smart person. I was like, hold up.
Mhm.
Like, and why did so that's where this started is like, oh, I'm genetically
Predisposed.
predisposed. I would say inclined, but that's, yeah, predisposed. So I
Yep.
just accept it and then take medicines for the rest of your life. So, what do you have to say about that? Right?
Well, what I have to say about that scientifically is that the diseases that I listed off, or the disease categories, if you will, there's a 10 to like 40% on the high end
Mm,
where the DNA and the genes are actually linked back to the disease and any kind of predisposal state might be there. Okay, so sometimes there's zero and sometimes it's very, very low, the correlation.
right.
And then it will immediately be all the lifestyle factors as to whether this will actually engage this disease state and become a thing or
Right.
not,
Yeah.
right? So even if there is a small element of, okay, my mother did die of cancer, my sister has had cancer, my grandmother has had cancer. So I have in my family line a lot of cancer. I've been genetically tested and have zero of the genes related to any of these cancers.
Hmm.
Go figure,
Right on.
right? That's a possibility. And now
Mhm.
genetic testing is, of course, available. My dad died of a heart attack. Doesn't mean I'm going to have a heart attack. Like, it's all of these things that we either attach ourselves to that family history and story
Mhm.
because it gives meaning to our life in some way. In this instance, I would say in a very negative, limiting way
Yeah.
that will restrict us from really taking responsibility of this body and this life and
Mhm.
allowing our mental and emotional state as well to get attached to that, not just our lifestyle choices and the physical results that will manifest, but like how we feel about the world and what we can and can't do. Why would we choose that?
Mm. Mm. Well, that's just the the paradigm that person, and one of the things I want to just touch upon is we're hitting upon this is like there's research in health psychology that shows that identity-based beliefs, like how, like I'm predisposed for cancer, I'm predisposed for diabetes or whatever. Not
Yeah.
maybe don't even not even true. Like if you had just come up with that, you're like, oh look, because I totally know. I remember in my 30s when I would go into the doctor, and you know how they ask the same questions. Tell us all about your family history, right? Pretty quick, I was like, I don't care what my family history is, like, because this is not affect. Like my family was doing some, alcoholism and crappy things to themselves, and I'm like, I'm not doing all of that. So like, I really quickly had a different paradigm of how I saw myself, but in health psychology, they say that, if you identify that, right, like as that, or you have a belief, it significantly influences your behavior and your outcomes, right? Like if you're just predisposed to it, some people will just be like, well, I'll just eat all the pizza I want. I'll just, eat all the junk food or whatever. Like I can't outrun it or something like that. And if you see that condition as fixed, you're just not going to take action. You're not going to make meaningful changes, and I look at this like, even if you were 50% or you said 40% predisposed for that or whatever, it's like you still got a 60%, you can like that's some good odds. Like
60%.
don't double down on it. Like, like
Exactly.
don't
It's a
throw in your cards and like vote for it. Be like, okay, what can I do?
it's a vote for it. You're right. That's what it is. It's like, oh, well, it was 40% for whatever, and these are extreme scenarios. But now I'm going to do 10 more things. Make sure it gets up to 80% because I want to win this thing.
You're betting on the wrong horse there. Sorry.
Exactly.
Like,
You're
hey,
sitting
bet
on the
on
wrong
you,
side
bet
of the
on
table.
longevity, bet on vitality, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So,
Identity is connected. Anyway, there's so much science around DNA and all of this kind of stuff now in terms of any and all things that might be going on with your body and your brain and your mental and emotional state, of course, and even addiction, all that kind of stuff. So, like, if you have these ideas in your head because grandma told you or your parents or a doctor told you or something like that, I would just want to encourage you to go actually research the latest science to see what is true here. And then if you choose, you can get these things tested.
hmm
I was supposedly not given hormones when I went through menopause because I had early menopause with my autoimmune disease, and then I had to have hysterectomy, all these things. So I was not given hormones because my mom had cancer, had breast cancer, and my grandmother had ovarian cancer. So there was an assumption made there, right, that I was high risk. That science has all changed, and we've completely debunked who and who should not get hormones and all that stuff. But I mean, I lost a good 5 to 10 years of high quality building of this body and this brain and my cardiovascular system, all the things I care about. I was doing the work, but I was like depleted at the same time because of that. And that's just not fair or right. And then
hmm
in hindsight, to have all of these things tested now and see that I have zero genetic markers, it's like, why didn't I get tested then if that was a supposed reason, right? Anyway, don't get me started on that's just my personal thing. Another thing is people label around age being a label related to their medical condition. So
Yeah.
naturally age, how many doctors, oh my God. Okay, now I'm going to rant about something else. How many doctors have you experienced that because you hit a certain age bracket, whatever it was, this kind of started for me in my 40s. And when I went into early menopause, I was around 40, which is really young. And so then from then up until now, like because of my age, they put me into a bucket,
Mm.
right? And then they find out, oh, she's a multi-time Ironman, ultra runner, cross all the, and they're like, what? They don't even know how to talk to me in most instances, right? But if they didn't know all these other things about me and I didn't share them, they would just drop me into a bucket, which
Mm.
is kind of an abyss,
Mm.
and categorize me based on my age. And a lot of us go into the doctor's office and do the same thing to ourselves.
Cells. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just getting old now.
Well, and I'm sorry, there is a thing called a bell curve, right? And you can plant yourself in the middle or on the lower, percentiles of it, or you can see yourself and live into the higher percentiles. Like, yeah,
Totally.
you're on the lean part of the percentile, but like I'm walking it, yeah, like I absolutely walk in there like I'm fit as get out and taking good care of myself and have been, sure there's things that aren't working as well as they did when I was a teenager or whatever, but like okay, but not in that. And that's where some of, the healthcare system is like they're designed for managing symptoms. They're seeing people coming in that bell curve and they're like, well, the majority are in here, right? Sure, they're going to have some outliers like you and, menopause, early symptoms or whatever. And then the preemies, like, premium, taking really good care of themselves, like you have to tell them how different your lifestyle is, right? So that they can adjust that bell curve and go, oh, you're out here. Okay, yeah, you're right. I agree. So
Yeah.
we want to optimize our healthcare, right? So there's the healthcare system, God bless it, is largely around that middle of the bell curve. And guess what? The food system and the, exercise, it's like you got to get out where the branches are thin, where you're taking great care of yourself. You're doing the exercise, regularly. So you don't fall into that bell curve and then you just sort of like you said, the abyss. And, are we treating, is your provider treating health? Are they helping you optimize, right? Like you are, like that's how you and I think is, I'm not just trying to have a comfortable decline to the finish line. I'm like, how do I optimize and feel as good as possible? Because we got mountains to get up to.
Yeah, and doctors don't have time to be really digging into, what's your nutrition like, how much exercise, and all these things. Generally it's not their wheelhouse of expertise, and also that science is changing all the time. But this is the patient or the human's responsibility to understand these things. And because I've taught it for so long, it's really fun for me to
Mm-hmm.
like have people learn about their bodies
Mm-hmm.
and to see the evolution of somebody that comes in really disempowered and just not knowing, innocently just not knowing, to coming out the other side just like, crushing it because they've just taken on, hey, this is really important to me and I'm going to invest in this and I care. And
Mm-hmm.
we should all care. We shouldn't expect the person on the other side to care more about us than we care about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And I,
That's nuts. They're seeing hundreds of people, okay?
yeah, and I think the other thing, just in what you were talking about and describing, is like, do not wait for a diagnosis to do something,
Right, right.
right? Do not wait to have a surprise or a too late or, like, oh, geez, or if you are getting early warning signs, do something about them early, right? Or even earlier, like optimize for health and well-being, right? But if nothing else, don't wait for like the wake-up call because you and I see it, we see the people who take dramatic, they take their life into their hands, their health into their hands but it's like, why weren't you doing that 20 years ago? So like do it now when it matters and you can, extend that. You can have optimal health now and now and now into the future.
Mm-hmm,
Don't wait for that diagnosis to be that wake up call for you, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't waste any time. Don't waste any time, right?
Get up to stuff. So,
How can you do this? How can somebody realistically do this? We can give examples of how we've done it, but we should at least give some tips on how to walk in
mm,
and advocate for yourself. How to, I see this in people who are doing, some kind of disease prevention or even, so they're trying to get informed,
mm,
and get tests and things of that nature, like me trying to get the genetic, test for the various cancers and all that kind of stuff, or whatever it is. We're trying to get educated and informed. We're trying to get empowered, but, insurance doesn't want to pay for it, and doctors don't want to write the orders for the thing. And you have to really advocate to get, and sometimes fight to get what you want and what you need for yourself in terms of information, because
mm,
information is really the power, the liberation of choice. If
mm,
I'm not informed and I go in, I'm just going to default to whatever comes at me, right? It will be decided for me. But if I can get some resourced information and knowledge about my body and my things that might be going on,
mm,
then I have the power
mm-hmm,
to influence any and all decisions, frankly, whether I choose to do whatever I do.
mm-hmm, absolutely. And I think the thing I just want to, so most times it's you go in and you have some blood work and then, or a heart check or whatever, like the wake up, whether it's a small hit or a big wake up
Well, let's
call.
start there. You're going to have blood work. Okay. How many people? I mean, these are funny questions because I know plenty of people in my life that don't do any work at all in this area
Mm. They
and
don't go
won't
to
say
the
to the
doctor
doctor.
for 10
So
years,
they
right?
go to
Yeah.
blood work, go for blood work, for example, because it's been ordered as part of their annual exam or whatever the deal is, right? And so they go and they have blood work, have no idea what the blood work is they're actually getting done. They just
Mm,
go to the lab and have blood drawn.
mm, mm,
What in the heck is that blood draw for? They have no idea. Okay.
mm,
Then they get the blood drawn and the results come back into their inbox because now we can all access our stuff, right? They don't even look at it.
mm.
Okay. Because their thing is, well, I wouldn't know how to interpret it. So that's a story.
Yeah.
And then they wait until they go into the doctor's office, and the doctor is now going to tell them whether it's good, bad, or ugly and what the next steps are. They should know, first of all, you're going in and giving blood. You're having a test, whatever the test is.
Well, and
Recently, I had an echocardiogram. It was fascinating. I was such a triple nerd, dude. I was literally like, that's my heart. Oh, that's this part of the heart. What's this thing over here? Why is it going like that? And the gal that was doing it was like, who the heck is this chick? But she totally loved me. We had this great convo this whole time.
mhm.
And I was like, hey, what about this thing? And, she was so incredibly educated, but it
Yeah,
was no one asks her these
you were
questions.
curious. You were
And I
curious.
was curious. That's my freaking heart. How many times in your lifetime will you get to actually see your heart, people? Come
That's cool.
on. This is
That,
magic.
that's
It's on
awesome.
the screen. And it's like talking to me. Hey, what's up?
So
It was so cool.
So something I learned because of the thyroid condition that I have and years of, for 2 to 3 years, and when I first had the diagnosis, I was pricked and poked every month. I had to get blood work every month, so I just got really used to that and, whatever. Later, I come to find out there are tests that they don't always run on thyroid that you can ask for. So some of it is, I'm not saying all blood work you need to ask for, but I definitely probe my doctor sometimes to ask for things that he hasn't requested, right? Because
Right.
they're doing whatever. So, like here's okay, you and me and AI, right? So I love to, so one of the things with AI, you can like ask it back, like, what did I miss? Or what could I have done differently? Or whatever, right? Like you can like AI your
Because you're in relationship with AI. I know you are. You are having a love affair. I got you, girl. I
It's
got you.
it's master and student right now. It's like I'm learning it. I'm learning
Sensei.
sensei, yes. One of the things is, you ask it, you're like, okay, well, what could we have done differently, whatever, that kind of a thing. So like back to your doctor. So he says, order and they don't tell you what they're ordering. And that's what was fascinating for me is I didn't know there's like, because I know that you and I nerd out on this stuff, right? So I'm talking to my phlebotomist who's in my doctor's office, and I'm like, so which panel did he order? And she's like, well, he ordered this and this and this. And I go, well, what about, and so just getting more educated in what got ordered, and then because I get blood work at least every year. He wants it every 6 months because of the thyroid and maintain it and stuff. Anyway, so you just start to like know, and like I said, as you go
Mhm.
down sometimes a rabbit hole, if you have something that is a condition that you have, I come to find out that there's additional, there's like TS, TSH, T4, T3, like different ones that they can test for, and just sort of like they can test for vanilla or they can test for the rainbow, right?
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
like, oh, I didn't know that, and
And a lot of the reasoning that they're picking and ticking this box versus that one or whatever the thing is the Western medical system and the insurance system in particular, and what they will and will not cover and what is normal. And then they have to put a code on there, diagnostic code. I think this person has metabolic
right.
disease, code number XYZ, and therefore I'm going to do number one and number two. Or I think this person has cardiovascular disease, and I'm going to pick number one, two, three. So that's kind of just to give people a background how that gets determined.
Hmm.
But remember, you're in the doctor's office talking to the doctor. So you can walk in and say, these are the things I'm experiencing. These are my concerns. These are the things I'd like to have tested.
Exactly.
And it could be that they don't pick one thing, they pick two or three things. Or if it's like hormones, for example, it's very complex, right? You can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to test her estrogen today. And then we're going to make all her life decisions for the next year plus based on that. It's complete lunacy, right?
Mhm.
But if the patient doesn't have some basic baseline intelligence and like way to address it with the practitioner, it's going to be hard to get these tests done. It really
Yeah.
is.
And the second thing, like you asked, is, what do we do? So I get that, log into your portal, you have blood results. I'm like, ding, 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 going in. I pull
I
them out
know,
and I see
isn't
if
it
anything's
fun?
abnormal. I put it into, Google. I go, what does abnormal this mean? This is high. What does that mean?
Mhm.
What are some likely things? I mean, and I do not stop at like step one, like, oh, that means like one of them is I have this common one that shows up is my blood platelets are large. What the hell does that mean? So like, like it just says like that tells you your blood platelets are large. I'm like, well, why would I have large platelets? Is that normal? Is that okay? Is that down the road mean they're going to get stuffed up faster? Like, what does that mean? So just
Exactly.
getting curious.
Is that genetic?
Yeah.
Is that,
Am
causal?
I is there
Whatever.
something I'm doing that's causing my platelet? Do I live in higher altitude or lower altitude? Does that have
Uh-huh.
anything to do with it? All sorts of things. But so the
Totally.
first thing, anything that's abnormal, I put it in and I find out what is a MSH or I don't know what the letters are. I know a TSH, that's thyroid, but like what does that test and what does high and low mean and what are some things that what could that signal? And so yeah,
Totally. Totally. So you
beforehand.
go in there, you know what kind of tests are being run. You know then how well, first of all, how, get some damn access to read your test results, read them, do some research before you go back to the doctor, which usually is weeks or months sometimes, for these results to be a conversation between the two of you. And then you can walk in with your own ideas about what you'd like to have happen next rather than default on them. Because, by the way, they might get 10 minutes with you and
Mhm.
they haven't even read these results. They just don't have time. It's not reasonable to expect that when they walk in for your 10-minute session, that they're going to be completely informed and up to speed on all things Samantha Pruitt.
Well, and the other thing is,
Impossible.
what else in your life does the things that it signals, do you need to tell them about that they probably didn't ask about or don't, so like I was chasing this whole candida thing down this rabbit hole for years, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so once I knew what was the causes of candida, so I would go into the doctor and I would tell him more. I was like, "Hey, I'm doing this and I'm seeing this and this is also happening and could this be a factor?" So we would dialogue about it, so
Mhm.
I could help him know more about me to help me treat it, So
Yeah, yeah. I have an autoimmune disease. So like most of the doctors I see would not know that. It would be somewhere buried on my chart, but I'm many years out of that
yeah.
illness down
Yeah.
the pipe. So I'm not going to walk in and have a badge on my shirt that says all the things going on with me postmenopausal.
QR code. Just, QR code, get the
You
summary.
actually, that's a freaking good idea. We should all have a QR
Here's a
code.
summary of me, Doc. Things that you need to know. Just read up on me. It's like my socials, Here's, here's
But
the
then when you go in and you're having this conversation, it's not just good enough to go in and be like, you know, again, the red light on the dashboard talking about the thing. Yes, the thing needs to be talked about and there needs to be some resolution. You need to be empowered to know what your choices are. And then you choose, of course, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But in addition to that, when you go in and you have these doctor practitioner patient moments, and whatever type of doctor it is, right? You should also be able to articulate what it is you are trying to accomplish.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, postmenopausal female could get put into this bucket over here that looks and sounds a certain way. And from this point on,
Like a
I would be
decline.
treated
Yeah.
exactly appropriately, which would mean decline is normal and all of these things. And eventually she'll come back with some sort of disease, frail disease state. And then we'll just keep her alive as long as whatever, whatever.
Hmm.
I have to go in and say, so this summer, I'm going to hike the John Muir Trail for 250 miles. And then in the fall, I'll be running this 100-mile race. And, like I have to tell them what my life is and what my goals are so they can get behind that. Like when
Mm.
I had the back surgery, right? And I say to the doctor on the way literally into the surgery room, you have one thing. When I come out of here, I best be able to run again. Are we on the same page? Are we going? Are we doing this? If not, I'm backing up.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And
Or whatever. But as an example of like, here's what I want my life to look like now and moving forward. And I want you to partner with me on helping to make that happen. Those are the resources I'm here for.
yeah. And that's, I want to say two things I hear in that is like self-care and self-advocacy, right? So it's like I'm caring about myself. I'm not just like turning it over to, this is the end of the line for me, whatever. It's like, no, I care about myself. How can because you and I both have the underlying belief and values that align with, we can optimize for as long as possible, and and that's in our own hands, right? So we self-advocate, right? So we ask questions, we get opinions, we engage other people to help us care for ourselves, right? Like maybe I don't see something, right? And like you said, hey, I'm going into this just so you know, like this is important to me, like this is, and not that they would not want you to have a good recovery or whatever, but you're right, like letting them know, like, so, and I have friends that like they have more important things on their list. Like from a hormonal standpoint, some people's, especially female hormones, some people it's, brain fog or
Sleep.
sexual libido, or it's
Yeah.
tummy, big weight gain, whatever your priorities are, whatever that may look like I have them advocate and support you in that care, that self-care, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. And
yeah.
if they can't be a resource, and you'll know right away whether they're capable of or not, it becomes really obvious when you start to have conversations. This is no judgment upon those professionals who have worked and spent years getting educated and developing themselves in their career path. They're saving lives. There's no doubt about it. They're saving lives, they're treating disease. And for many people, they're making significant changes in their trajectory moving forward, right? But for you, you don't have to settle with the conversation ending there and you just moving forward on that path. You can choose to do whatever the hell you want. You can also choose to say no, thank you
Mm-hmm.
to what they're offering, and
Yeah.
they shouldn't be offended, right? They
Well,
shouldn't be offended.
yeah, and it's not like rebellion or distrust or whatever. It's like you
No.
self-advocate, it's an informed participation and you are choosing, right? Just
Mhm.
like if you went to a buffet and you're like, which one of these do you want, right? And I think what I what I often see with older family members that I have, they go into the doctor. It's just like they go in like whatever they say, just sort of not, and I'm always like, wait, take your own care into your own hands. You can, like you said, have conversations around this, get curious. Don't just say like diagnosis, oh well, it's over. It's like depending on the stage, as we talked about, you're closer to being able to have a meaningful impact and you have agency and power to do something. Later stage, okay, your options are more limited, but you still often have options, a in how you think about it, what you, and knowing that agency is like you have a belief that your actions matter.
Mhm.
You have that belief that I can do something about this, right? Something can happen, I can do it, right? And it directly influences your behavior and your outcomes, period. Going
Mhm.
back to that, health psychology is like, do you think this is what would change if you thought that you could do something about this or you can't? Are you going to ask about it or are you just going to like, okay, well, I guess there's nothing that can be done? Like, I have friends with like the rheumatoid arthritis or things that are, they build on each other. You can reverse, you can slow down that train. And I think, and I've seen people, in lots of cases, especially with the power of the mind, with the Joe Dispenza work, like you can reverse disease. So, but it's just,
Well, let's say you choose to go on a pharmaceutical, for example, or do some kind of treatment protocol because things have gotten flared up or to a certain level or whatever. You can also come off of it. It's not a death sentence or a life sentence. Maybe there is a circumstance where you need to temporarily be treated for this thing and whatever the uh, you know plan is that you sign on for. That's totally fine. There's a time and a place, right? But then you should immediately get to work figuring out, how do I ensure this doesn't go farther, go deeper, go further? How do I ensure that? And how can I actually get back into homeostasis
mm,
so my body can hopefully do a natural protocol around this thing, whatever this thing is that's currently in disarray,
yeah, for
right?
sure. And like we talked about different degrees of, let's call it desperation or limited options. So I remember my mom was diagnosed with light diabetes, not extreme, but light diabetes, and the doctor even gave her the option that she had. She was like, "Okay, well you got to get on this medication because you got it's too high and whatnot." She said, "Well, you could get off this if you would just walk 30 minutes a day."
Wow,
She
good
never
doc.
walked. She never walked, but at least the doctor said, well, you don't, I mean, the doctor knew enough to say that. And unfortunately, mom didn't
Yeah,
take that into heart. And so she never did. And so she was on that medication for a long, long, long time.
yes.
So, but,
And all of its side effects.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, you're hitting the next nail that we need to before we wrap this thing up is like lifestyle medicine is an actual thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Some people call it functional medicine,
Yeah.
lifestyle medicine, longevity medicine, call it whatever the hell you want. It's this giant bucket of things
Mm-hmm.
that the human can do throughout their day by various thoughts, choices, and actions that generate a state of health or disease,
Mm-hmm.
function or dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you just want to do a little bit of research in that arena, it will blow your mind. There's
Mm-hmm.
just so much good science going on here. But the basics, just real foundational stuff we should touch on, obviously, are gut health,
Mm.
and the permeable gut and all of the impacts that your gut
Oh,
has on
yeah,
the rest of the systems,
definitely.
right? Like if your gut health is off, most things in the body will be off.
Yes.
So, I mean, you could nerd out all day long on gut microbiome and gut health, but maybe you
Which I
want to
do.
touch bases on that for just a hot second.
That's one of my favorite topics. Let's nerd on that
Let's
another
talk
time.
about poop too while we're here. I mean, people aren't pooping, dude. Anyway, I digress.
Okay.
Talk about gut health.
Yeah. I agree. And there's a guy named Dr. Dean Orish. He has clinical research. We talked about one of those top ones like cardiovascular, right? His research shows that lifestyle interventions can reverse many aspects of heart disease,
Mhm.
right? So like
Oh, yeah.
challenging that it's inevitable, I just have it, whether it's genetic or you got a diagnosis. It's like, no, actually there's probably some options, some things you could do today to reverse that. Don't need to be like in the hospital with a widowmaker, get a stent. I mean, everybody, I've got too many friends and family and loved ones getting these stints, like, just like they're handing them out like straws at a bar. It's like, I'm sorry, like, no, like,
Hmm.
let's get you on the treadmill. Let's get you out for a walk. Let's, get you off the sugar a little bit, a lot of things, right? So, and gut health, yes. Like, yeah, I mean, and what's often, so there's like two things. One is, it's identity, right? If you don't think you can do anything, or if you're just, predestined or whatever, you won't take the same actions as if you did, right? And second is like, knowing what to do and then doing it, right? It's not always easy in this environment that we live in with all the junk food and the choices and the stressful days and like it costs something to work out and whatnot. Like it's not always easy to live a healthy lifestyle, but it is a choice that you can make, right? And so you've got to get over that inertia sometimes of like, body at rest tends to stay at rest. It's like, and a body in motion tends to stay in motion. Once you get on the healthy angle, it's easier to stay in that lane and in that zone, just as it is to stay out of shape, out of good health, out of, like I said, dysbiosis, right?
Hmm. Hmm. And you really only need to do the 80-20. If you can make the right decision 80% of the time, you are crushing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it doesn't mean you all of a sudden have to live this very extreme lifestyle and everything has to be perfect. That's a whole other psychological problem that we're not going to get into in this show. But if you live the 80-20 and 20% of the time you're kind of like, I'm not feeling it today, or I'm going to do this other thing today,
Yeah.
cool. But if 80% of the time you're making the right choices, the right decisions, taking the right actions, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine.
Yeah. And, one of the things is to just start with what you probably already know that you need to be doing. If you've got the wake up call or if you fear that you're close to having a wake up call or, a diagnosis or something like that, and you're like, I know I should, whatever, stop having that extra glass of wine at night or stop eating that candy bar or stop, whatever, or I know I need to walk more. Okay, well, you know it. Okay, let's do something about it. And like one of the things that I see is, especially as people, age up, whatnot, is, one of my favorite phrases in terms of relationships is Jim Rohn says, I'll take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me, right? Because it's this partnership, right? And it's like, I'm going to take care of this body and myself and my well being and being the best partner I can be because I care about you and you do the same for me. And I see that also with family. It's like people don't often see the not caring for themselves, the eventual impact that's going to have on their loved ones. It's like
Oh, it's
a
massive.
you're probably paying a price also, and you're going to ask them to pay a price in watching you, whatever, a young death, long, painful, decline, whatever it is. But like taking care of you for them also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we could go on about this all day long, obviously.
Well, I hope, my biggest thing was a friend who was like, just, it's inevitable. I hope you've heard enough in this and the way that you and I think that if you haven't already awakened to getting curious, shifting your paradigm, asking more questions, feeling more empowered, taking your agency back, God damn, then this was like, okay, click next. Don't listen, keep listening to us. But that's who we see you as, is somebody who wants control of their life, wants more agency in making their choices and doing something about it. So
Yeah. I
get
mean,
about
it's not that we're saying don't trust, Western medical or this or that. What we are saying is trust yourself above
it.
all.
Mm,
And you can trust yourself when you know yourself. The
mm,
more I know who I am and how I work and what's good for me, the more I know me, the more empowered I am to trust myself to make the right decisions
yes.
at whatever stage, no matter how big the crisis, no matter how small the thing is. I know the answer. And
Mm,
so it's that, to me, like that's the take home, is like, dude, know yourself and trust yourself. You're going to be fine.
yeah.
But if you somehow decided that's someone else's job, we have a problem.
Yeah, that's what we don't want to see. Yeah, and take actions. Like if you find out something, you have the power. Do not just take that as destiny. Like take it back into your own hands. Like one of my mentors says, like you walk in and the doctor hands you a diagnosis, whatever, and it's like, okay, thank you for your opinion. I will not be following that trajectory, right? It's like, okay, that's an opinion, and and what do you think? What do you believe? What do you know about yourself and your ability? Because I'm sorry, if you just search for people, there's probably every disease, including blindness and all sorts of things known to man, that people have reversed.
Mhm.
There are people all over the planet, so if they can, why not you? Like
Mhm.
you can too. So you just have to know, if you activate that in your mind, like, well, if somebody has reversed this, I can reverse it. If there's a way to do it, I can do it, right? And then you take that power back. So this was
Exactly.
fun.
It was fun.
Yeah, I like helping people remember their awesomeness, their absolute awesomeness, and take it into the world and dimension of your health. My God, right? Nothing else.
Because how your life feels and your body and your brain is more important than how it looks.
And every day is your opportunity to find your awesome.
Love it, lady. See you next week.
Woo-hoo.
Bye.